Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of having Scott Dickinson with us. He's the creator of the Next Level device. He works at Excel Physical Therapy and Fitness in Chalfont, Pennsylvania. He has also completed a residency in orthopedics at the University of Delaware and recently sat for the OCS exam and passed. Congratulations, Scott, and thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks, JT. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's funny. The OCS exam, you take it in March, and then you sit on your hands for 3 months and wait to figure out if you passed. And that date just rolled around, and so I'd almost forgotten I took the test. It was so long.
Yeah, I didn't realize how long that goes. I'm sure that's a hard process to wait out.
Yeah, I mean, a month goes by, and then all of a sudden it just drops out of your mind. So I guess it wasn't too bad.
There we go. Well, congratulations. And would you be able to go ahead and kind of introduce yourself to the audience and give a little background on yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Scott Dickinson. I'm a physical therapist and an athletic trainer. And then, like JT said, my most recent endeavor is inventing a neck rehabilitation device called the Next Level device. And so, to back up a little bit, coming out of high school, I knew I wanted to go to physical therapy school, coming out of an experience I had with my ankle. So I had an ankle surgery in high school, and that took me out of competitive sports. And I guess I was always a wannabe high level athlete with college sports aspirations, and so that didn't happen. But in that process, I was exposed to physical therapy, which I was in for 9 months. So I got a really good look at it, perhaps too good of a look, and so I wanted to kind of steer myself towards there. I had always had flirtations with medical school, and so I knew I wanted to go into the science route, the medicine route, and my physical therapist recommended I do athletic training as an undergrad because that'll get my hands on patients and athletes the fastest, just to see if I like it. And that was fantastic advice, it turns out. And so I did athletic training at the University of Pittsburgh, and so I got to work with Division I athletes on the Pitt football team, the Pitt baseball team. And so, these are relationships that I've formed and I still have today. And it also, opened my eyes to what it's like to work and talk and treat patients. And it seemeed good to me. I didn't know if I wanted to work in outpatient orthopedics or, with a professional sports team, college team, whatever. But at that time, it was enough impetus for me to go to physical therapy school. And so I applied, and I got into my dream school at the University of Southern California. I had just finished up 4 years in the cold and sometimes dreary Pittsburgh, and I was ready for a big change. And so I switched to the other side of the country and went out to the University of Southern California. And 3 years later, doctor of physical therapy. After that, like you mentioned, I jumped right back to the East Coast, and I started an orthopedic residency at the University of Delaware. It's been remarkable because if you look at the top PT schools in the country, Pitt, USC, and the University of Delaware are all on that list. And it's just funny how that worked out. I don't know if it's a reflection of me or just my desire to always be around the best people and the best minds. And so, here we are. It's funny to look back at that.
Yeah, that is awesome. No, you definitely had great exposure to great physical therapy programs. And yeah, I kind of wanted to know, so once you kind of got out there and like, why did you decide to gain that additional experience of an OCS? And what are some of the benefits that has brought to you already in your career?
Yeah, it's something that I thought about a lot. And the University of Southern California does a really good job as you're going through the PT program of exposing you to what a residency looks like because they have residents coming in and teaching you in your classes. And so you're looking at these gods, they're residents, they're through PT school, they're doctors of physical therapy, and they're getting specialized training in something that they're interested in. So, for example, the orthopedic clinical specialty or the ortho resident people would be teaching us analytical anatomy, and they'd be in our clinical, hands-on skills classes. And so you're interacting with these people, and so you're getting exposed to it very early on in the PT school process, and that's something I'm not sure is happening across the nation when you look at PT schools. And so that was always something that was put in front of us. And so I knew pretty early on that that was the next step for me. One thing that I felt coming out of PT school, and specifically in my third year of treating as a student, where you're starting to feel a little bit more independent, right? So your CEI is trusting you a little bit more, and so you start to realize how vulnerable you are. You start to realize that if you miss a diagnosis or if you treat someone poorly, you're at risk. Things can go bad. And so I had this kind of paranoia in my head that said, are you ready for this? Are you sure you're ready to go off and treat independently with a general population? And so for me, it was an obvious decision to go to residency, where I knew that I would get specific one-on-one mentoring from people with a lot of experience. I know that I would have people to bounce my ideas off of and sit down with and do case reviews and talk about any specific problematic, patient case that I was going through. And so just having the support of that around me, and they say that, doing a residency for 1 year is 5 years of experience. Who knows if that's true? But at the end of the year of residency, I certainly felt more comfortable treating independently. And here we are a year later of treating out in the real world without specific oversight.
Yeah, I'm sure. From everybody that I've talked to that has gotten their OCS, the amount of kind of because going through PT school, obviously we're taught to be general therapists, but to really, if you want to specify and really get deep into that setting that you want to get in, doing those residencies have been so beneficial. And they've said that like it's just really accelerated their learning, kind of like what you said, like 5 years of experience. I don't know, that's something that has really got me intrigued in residencies and the benefit of it to be able to really, if you want to become good at something, really go that next level and gain that. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to know, what does a typical day look like for you right now? How is everything going? Like, how does your day? How could you give a little bit of like kind of a glimpse into your day for all the audience?
Yeah, I guess I should, introduce the company that I've been working on as well. So I've started a company around this invention of mine. It's called the Next Level Device, and so my company is Next Level LLC. And so, I have both work as a physical therapist, where I'm in an outpatient orthopedic clinic in just outside of Philadelphia. And then I also run this business where, I'm trying to sell and get this next level device out to the world. And it's funny, the timing of this recording. I launched the device to the public yesterday, so everything was opened up. So I'm posting on all the social media. The website's unlocked. All the YouTube videos are up. So there's so much media online now about the device, and that literally all started yesterday. So this podcast is coming at a big transition period in my life, because prior to yesterday, no one knew I was an inventor. No one knew I owned my own business. I was just a physical therapist. So, I'm going through this little identity crisis inside, where, how are people going to perceive you? This is a big shift for me. And yeah, you certainly feel vulnerable, because, you're putting yourself out there and you don't know how people are going to respond. But, it's been no surprise to me that I have very good friends and a great support system. And so everyone's been super supportive as of yesterday. And, I'm still running off of this high from launching the device yesterday. But, to your question, a day in the life, it's probably not that ideal to look at from an outsider's perspective. It's not glamorous. I wake up at 4:15, 4:30 in the morning. And then I have my coffee, and then I get to work for 2 hours on the next level device and the company, and whatever it has to be that day, whether it's video editing or shooting an interview or product design, whatever it is. Then I have 2 hours for that. Then I have my breakfast and go off to work, where I work 9 hours treating patients all day. I come home, I slurp some dinner up, and then I have another 2-3 hours of work before I go to bed at 10 p.m. And I've found that the sweet spot for sleep is around 6 hours for me. And so, it's a jam-packed day, and that doesn't come without its sacrifices, friends and family, and my puppy, all these things I don't get to spend as much time with. And, that's just what it takes. I'm committed to getting this thing off the ground.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, like the diligence and that discipline to be able to get up every morning and work on something that you obviously care so much about it is so key, I think, in becoming a successful entrepreneur. And I just kind of wanted you to know, I kind of explained it a little bit about the next level device. I kind of wanted to know how you came up with that idea, when along your like PT career did you think of that idea, and just how has processes has kind of come out for you.
Yeah, so the idea was very separate from the initial putting a prototype together. So there was a lot of time between the two, just because I'm a baby and I was scared about trying out this idea, and so I put it on the back burner for a long time. I thought about the idea in PT school. I had a mentor who I look up to as like a god. He's this fellowship of manual therapy trained orthopedic clinical specialist. He taught at the University of Southern California for decades, and then I got to work underneath him at his clinic, and he would do these manual treatment learning evenings where it was called sips and manips. So you'd have a little bit of alcohol and you'd do a little bit of manipulations, and you'd practice all your hands-on techniques. And so he taught me this manual technique, to get technical. He taught me this manual technique where you're stabilizing, in the cervical spine, you're stabilizing C2 and you're rotating C1 on top of a stable C2. And it was a way to improve mobility in the upper cervical spine. And I just love this technique. And so I started using it on my patients, for anyone with, stiff suboccipitals or anything like that, tension up high. And so the patients loved it. I loved doing it. I was like, oh my God, if only I could find a way to bring this to people at home. Like, how can I offer this technique to people when I'm not around? And so that was the generation of the idea. Like, how can I figure out a way to get this to home? And so what's funny about that is the idea there is very, very different from what ended up being the model that we look at today. So there were so many iterations in the prototype, and that specific manual technique has kind of been let go of as the inspiration for the device. And what we have now is a neck strengthening and mobility device. So if you haven't seen it, it's this low friction sliding platform where a patient or you will lie down on your back and your head rests on the device, similar to where you'd position a pillow. And then you can turn your head really comfortably. And one of the design challenges for me was making sure that this platform moving back and forth was buttery smooth. Like, JT, have you been on it?
Yeah, I definitely tried it, and yeah, just totally smooth.
Yeah, so that was so important. So that was a nice design challenge. And so then, okay, now we have this device where you can turn your head back and forth. You're out of gravity, right? Because you're supine. So your neck muscles, the gravity, your discs, nothing's being compressed. You can comfortably turn back and forth. And then you add on these resistance bands whenever you want to do strengthening. And so now you can perform some exercises where with your patient where they don't feel like they're doing something really weird. Because I don't know about you, JT, but the available neck exercises prior to like a year ago, I was just appalled. Like, you'd see people wrapping a resistance band around their head and then like pulling the resistance band or pushing their head into a wall with like a partially deflated ball. Like, it was an ugly scene. And so that was extremely motivating for me to develop something that felt a little bit more legitimate for both the physical therapist or the chiropractor, and then on the other side for the patient.
Yeah, no, it's definitely is a very official looking, and that's what so a little bit of background. I was exposed to Next Level Device at one of my clinical rotations during like the didactic portion of my program, and I thought it was really interesting. And then my CA was like, "Oh, actually, yeah, one of my friends in PT school created this," and so I got really intrigued by it because it definitely was like something that we used, and like being able to work on it, you can definitely tell that you're strengthening those neck muscles and everything right there. And I was like, okay, how did he go about this? I was just really intrigued and I wanted to know more. And I thank you for sharing that. Thank you for kind of explaining those ideas, how it came to mind. And I kind of wanted to elaborate on that. Were you ever interested in becoming kind of that entrepreneur and inventor prior to PT school? Had that mindset ever been there, or how did that kind of develop for you?
Yeah, it's funny because since opening up this business, I realized that I need to become a business person. And, I certainly wasn't that growing up. Like, you hear these stories of entrepreneurs where they grow up selling anything they can, and, they're picking flowers and selling it back to the person's house. It's just ridiculous. That was not me growing up at all. Like, I was not this like entrepreneurial spirited young boy. I didn't really care about money that much. Like, I didn't really care about having a job if I didn't need to. I worked as a lifeguard for, 5 summers just because it was there and it was a little bit of money. But so, I was not this born and bred entrepreneur that people certainly think of. And, uh, you know, like I mentioned, I wanted to go into physical therapy because I like to treat patients. I like to work with people. I wasn't so much concerned with starting a business or an invention or anything like that. But I've always been an ideas guy, and ideas come very easily to me, for good or bad. And I've been poor at execution across my life. And I have all these ideas, and I will often let them flop. Where, it's funny, I'm on this podcast now. One of my first ideas that I really actually put a little bit of effort into was a podcast when I was in PT school. It was called the Stalling Podcast. It's not available online, so hopefully nobody has to search for it. Me and my brother were both kind of like, what can we do? The Stalling Podcast. This could represent us where we are right now in life, where, my brother didn't know what he wanted to do. He's like, do I go to med school? Do I go to law school? Whatever. He was in college. And then I was in PT school, and I was like, which route should I take? Should I go to orthopedics or sports or geriatrics? And so it was funny. We call it the Stalling Podcast because we were both kind of stalling in life, not knowing what we wanted to do. And so, that idea flopped for me right after the first recording of the episode. Like, I just hated editing it. And then all of a sudden I just let that idea pass. And so, I have a history of ideas with lack of execution. So, it is really nice to think that I've invented this device where it came from just an idea. And now here we are a few years later, and I have an actual product that I'm selling to everyone. An NFL team just bought the device. So like, this idea went from, something in my head that I was scared to put out into the world to, perhaps the most legitimate entity in the world buying it. It's very, very validating. And so, no, I wasn't an entrepreneur. No, I didn't have plans to invent, but I did have this idea, and luckily I decided to pursue it. And I gotta say, it's been the ride of my life. I'm having a fantastic time. It feels like that high level athlete that I always wanted to be. I always wanted to go out and compete with people and compete with myself. And here we are. What better place to do it than as an entrepreneur and as an inventor, trying to bring something to the world.
Yeah, that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I totally agree with you. Like, when you have an idea, like I feel like I have some, like, a lot of ideas sometimes, and then you figure out a way. Oh, well, this wouldn't be realistic for this, or, oh, I can't do it because of, like, at least that's how I found myself too. And the same thing with the podcast. I was like, I want to be able to learn more about entrepreneurship, about business, about like all these different things of PT that we get a little bit of exposure in during PT school, but obviously because of the circumstance that we're in, we can't get deep into. And so I wanted to create it, and then I told my wife about it, and then I was like, I had mentioned it to some friends, and then I was like, I looked up making a podcast, and I felt a little bit overwhelmed. Like, oh, I don't have any of this equipment, all these things, and kind of like backed off for a second, and then like my wife kind of gave me a little nudge, like, hey, what about that like podcast that you're thinking of? And so then I was like, okay, well, I'll ask for this thing for my birthday, and then like I got like a little bit of equipment, and then I started like just slowly getting it, and then just now that I've like started doing it, it's been so fun and so enjoyable. And I think that's something that's so important that I've learned is like, you got to try. Like, even if you like strike out, and at least you're trying and you're having a great experience, and like you've learned so much from that. Like, I've learned so much in this little time of creating this podcast that I feel like I can apply to so many future goals and endeavors that I want to do. So I totally agree with you right there. Like, it's definitely a process and scary sometimes to try something new, but it's cool. Like, it's such a fulfilling thing to be able to have success with it. And I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to know a little bit more about kind of the whole, it's been a timeline. It's been like a lot of learning steps throughout. You said, from what I learned, kind of learning everything about the next level device, is that the first prototype had to do kind of with the skateboard, if I understand correctly. And so I just kind of wanted to know, could you explain a little bit about that and how that's changed over time and to where it is now. And everyone, you can obviously check that out, and you'll be able to see it doesn't look like a skateboard. It's a lot different now. So I kind of wanted to know like what happened in that whole process throughout.
Yeah, it's funny, and I should mention the fact that I live at home with my parents. I'm single. I live at home with my parents. I moved back in after I came to the East Coast again for residency, and this is not a glamorous life from the outside. I think entrepreneurial Instagrams or whatever look pretty amazing from the outside, and that's not the experience I've had. I'm still waiting to get on that private jet or whatever. So I live with my parents, and obviously that keeps rent cheap, and so I can funnel as much money as I can into this business. But yeah, so the first prototype, I'm living with my parents. I just moved back in, and I lie down on the linoleum floor in our kitchen, and I have a history as a bit of a skateboarder, and so I grabbed my skateboard and I was like, would this work? Like, I feel like this should be a thing where you're turning your head back and forth, but it's able to stay in the same spot, right? Like, so if you lie on a pillow, it's going to roll back and forth. But if you have a skateboard underneath you, it'll move, and then your head can stay on the same plane, right? So I'm like, okay, this is going to feel weird. So I lie down on my back. I got a couple couch cushions and put those on the floor so that my head wasn't all the way up in flexion, right? So I raised my torso height. So I got these couch cushions on the kitchen floor. I put the skateboard, perpendicular to my spine under my head, and this rough grip tape is underneath my hair, and I'm turning back and forth. And well, firstly, it worked. Like this board slid underneath me, and I was able to comfortably turn back and forth. And I was like, okay, now I need a towel. I need something to make a little bit of cushion between my head and this grip tape. So I put this soft towel between that, and I was like, wow, this is kind of remarkable. And then the next, stage of vulnerability goes to there's no way that someone hasn't invented this yet, right? Like, this is so stupidly simple. How is this not out on the market yet? Like, this felt comfortable. I'm sure someone can make this way better than this skateboard. And so then you start searching Google, and you search the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office's database, so you can search through prior patents that are published, and nothing was there. I was like, what? This hasn't been invented yet? Like, it was almost like insulting. Like, I was like, how has some PT or chiropractor not figured out that this is like a comfortable way to stretch the head back and forth? And so ever since then, it was like, all right, this is not going to sell. This skateboard is definitely not going to sell. So I need to, make an actual design. I need to prototype this thing. And so, the evolution of the prototypes, it's so funny looking back, because it was just so ugly early on. Like, I'll make a blog post on nextlevel.com at some point, and I'll walk everyone through the generations. But the first one was a skateboard, and then I tried to mount the skateboard trucks to a base and then have a deck that slid back and forth. And so, that flopped because the deck just falls all over the place. I was like, okay, I need stability. I need to be able to move this design around and then plop it down on any surface, and then it has to be able to go back and forth. And so I found if you've ever used a indoor rowing machine, there's the seat for your butt. It slides back and forth. And this thing is buttery smooth. Like, these wheels sliding back and forth, there's like no friction. And of course, you can't take the seat off. And I was like, okay, there we go. That's going to be the next prototype. And so I was going to buy like a steel I-beam and then have this seat where you're going to lie your head on top of that. And so that was dumb. And so, then it's, you get the smooth surfaces from the I-beam, and then you buy the trucks and the wheels. And so then I had this rowing machine roller system where people lie down on this thing, like my neighbors, my parents, my friends, and they're like, oh my God, this thing is so smooth. Like, how did you make it this smooth? I was like, thank you, rowing companies. That's how I did it. And so, I couldn't make that design look good. And, fast forward like 9 months, like, I was really trying to push this ugly, clunky looking device. Like, you're so, I guess it's like, you don't know how ugly your baby is because you're blind to it. If you have an ugly baby or whatever. And so I had no idea. Like, I was just so ignorant to the fact that this thing would never sell. And luckily enough, people were like, dude, you need to go back to the drawing board on this. And so I did. And the current design now, if you look at it, it's very similar to this rowing seat technology where there's these wheels, these smooth ball bearings with wheels, and then there's a flanged wheel where that prevents it going off the track. And so there are all these design challenges with developing it, but where we are now is not that different from one of the earlier prototypes. And now I just had to make it look good. And so that has been a really interesting experience for me because I've never been a product designer. I feel like I know what looks good, but I didn't know how to make something look good, right? Like I could identify something that looked aesthetically pleasing, but now it was like, all right, it's your job to create it. And so luckily the 3D printing technology right now is unbelievable. It makes prototyping something so stupidly easy compared to what it used to be. Like I feel so bad for people 50, 60 years ago, whatever, that had to develop a physical device without a 3D printer. Like this thing is a cheat code. I have it running in my basement right now. This thing you can rapidly prototype at almost zero upfront cost. And so this is how, still to this date, I'm producing a lot of the parts on the device, and they look beautiful. You can put your logo on them. You can shape them in any way you want, any color you want. And so we have this what I'd argue is a pretty aesthetically pleasing device now. And I have 3D printers to thank. And then I should mention that I've had a lot of design help from engineers. And so this path has been so amazing for me because I've came across and gotten to work with just brilliant people who are kind enough to offer their services for free. And that is amazing. Like if you're going into this world trying to invent something, be very, very cautious early on throwing thousands of dollars at people or companies or anything like that to develop something for you. I feel like you should stay as close as you can and use your entire network, squeeze every last drop out of it and see what you can get. Like there's a company or an organization called SCORE, which is a volunteer organization of retired executives. And so those guys, and I meet with them regularly still, those guys will give you business advice. And so there are so many ways to avoid, the $1,000 purchase, which, over that, over $500,000, I'm like, wait, am I really doing this correctly? Is this the right call? And so I've just had so much amazing help, and I've gotten it all for free by my network and by just being genuine and, thanking people when they help me, and then they refer me on to their next friend. And, it's just been an amazing process. I have a lot of people to thank, and the device that you'll see on nextlevel.com or our Instagram, it is not my doing, right? There are so many people that put their ideas into that product, and to say that was on me would be a total lie.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Like, yeah, it's cool to be able to hear your story of where you initially started, kind of just laying on that linoleum tile in your kitchen to be able to get to the process of where you're at and all the things that you learned along the way. I think that is really cool to see like that, and that you did everything kind of in-house, like you said. Like obviously you've used your network and used those connections that you've created to really have that idea and work step by step through it. That is something that I think it makes it so unique, and kind of like what you said, it's like your baby. Like you care about it so much, and you want that success for it because you put that work in. I kind of wanted to know, what are some of the important things that you learned along the way in creating a product for PT specifically and bringing it to market now? What are some of those key takeaways that you've gotten throughout that you're like, wow, this is something really valuable that I didn't really know at the time?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. Like I don't even know where to start. One thing that people should know is that it is not a glamorous path, and you are going to eat poop for a long time, right? Like there's going to be very little dopamine running through your brain for a long time before that reward system is hit because you did something well or somebody likes something, right? Like you are going to be in the trenches for days, weeks, months, years, I don't know, uh, until you have something that you get some positive feedback on, right? So you need to have thick skin, and you need to be, confident and patient. Like this is not going to happen over a day or a week. Like luckily I just have a mindset that I'm okay with this process, and I'm okay with things not rapidly ascending to the top. And it's going to take some time, and I understand that. And you got to have thick skin. Like I cannot tell you how many emails people have not answered me on And if you let every single email that doesn't go answered bother you, good luck, right? Like if you let every text that someone doesn't answer you on bother you, again, good luck to you. Like you have to be able to brush off the people that, that just, for whatever reason aren't in a position to help you out at that moment. Right. So we do a lot of trials with Next Level. Like I want to get the device into a PT clinic so that they can use it on themselves and their patients so that they feel comfortable with the device, and then they consider purchasing it. And so that's been really helpful for us. But oh my God, how many clinics have not wanted to do a trial? And I'm like emailing and they don't answer. And then you do a follow-up email, they don't answer. NFL teams, no answer. NBA teams, no answer. But if you shoot 100 shots and two or three of them stick, you know, all of a sudden, the device currently is being trialed with 4 NFL teams. We have 2 more starting up this coming month as training camp starts to begin. And then, the device is being used in the NBA. It's with an NHL team. All these things happen because of just persistence and not. I mean, certainly, I care when someone doesn't answer my email or my text, but you have to be strong enough to brush it off and just keep moving forward. Like no one thing can sink my ship is the way I think about it. Right. So no one email, no one stupid thing that I say, no one problem with the design is going to sink the ship. Right. So you just got to keep marching forward and understand that it's all learning and it's all a process. And I have one mentor who says, any failure in sales or marketing is just market research. There's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong. You're just learning. It's just market research.
I liked it a lot. No, like that's something that I feel like growing up, my parents like if you never ask somebody or if you have something you want to know or want to learn and you never ask, you already have that no. Like if you'd never done it, you're gonna have that no regardless. So at least like shoot your shot, try that out because you said you've gotten those opportunities, and yeah, I'm sure there's been countless times where you haven't, but it's paid off. And I think that resiliency is something that's so important and so vital in becoming kind of an entrepreneur and an inventor. Those things that you can't be just like this thing got hard finally, I'm gonna give up. Like there's times right now like even like when I like podcasts, like I haven't like worried about like the monetization or anything of that, but just like creating a good following stuff. And I'll go and I'll be able to create like a super cool podcast and I share it with everybody, and all of a sudden like I release it and there's only like a couple people that listen to it the first day. And I get like sometimes I can be like, oh man, maybe it wasn't like I thought this was gonna be such a great interview and such a great podcast. And then all of a sudden, like a couple of days later or a week later, it just takes off because I'm guessing somebody like listened to it and shared it with all their friends. And like if I get so caught up into the nitty gritty of like each little single thing that happens, that could totally weigh me down and get me down. But knowing long term what your goal is and that you're willing to get there and that it's going to be hopefully going to be a continually growing process, but you could have ups and downs kind of to out like throughout getting to that point. That's what it's been really helpful for me in keeping that mindset. So thank you for sharing that. um,
Yeah.
are there any other things that you'd say that you learned that you'd wish you'd learned sooner, that you like realized like, man, I learned this and this has really just been a game changer for me and I wish I'd learned this sooner? But I mean, maybe the experience was essential, maybe something that you could help future entrepreneurs and PT see and have that stepping stone already in place.
Oh man, again, there's just so many ways to go with it. Um, One thing is that you really need to be able to brush things off. Like, so, something's going to happen and you cannot take it personally. Right. So when again, to go back to the email thing, if someone doesn't answer my email, it's not because I did anything wrong. Right. Like I am perfectly willing and able and allowed to send an email to somebody. And if they don't answer my email, it is not a reflection of me necessarily. That is more a reflection of them. Like, maybe their family is going through some illness or maybe there's some hardship going on. Like there's no reason to make yourself feel bad if someone doesn't answer your email or your text or your phone call or whatever, because it is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection more so of them. And so, you have to be able to brush things off and not take things personally. That's something I remind myself of every day. And I don't mean to say like I'm up on this ivory tower looking down on people who don't care. Like this is a practice for me at all times, right? So I am constantly evolving and improving the thickness of my skin, the calluses of my mind, and just getting better and better at understanding the purpose of my communication attempts, and just brushing it off if it doesn't work out. Other things I've learned. Hmm, yeah, that's a good question. Is there anything specific for me? Give me a little more direction.
Yeah, I guess I'd say in regards to kind of creating prototypes and creating a market, like a device for PT specifically, what are some challenges that you never knew that you didn't expect kind of in? Do you have the idea and I'm going to bring this to market? Were there barriers, were there challenges, and like, oh, I didn't know that this was something that I needed to do. This is something that I needed to kind of explain, or like something like that is kind of what I've been interested in.
Yeah, yeah. So just for anybody who's hoping to invent something, there's a process that you need to go through, and then the first step in the process is, is there already prior art on your invention, right? Does somebody already invent this, and they're going to come after you if you also invent this thing, right? So you need to check if there's prior art, and you can do that for free. Lawyers may try to take thousands of dollars from you to do a prior art search, but you probably can avoid that just by using the old Dr. Google. And so you have that, and then the next stage is, if you feel like you're cleared, you move on, and then you start prototyping. Prototyping is, it doesn't need to look good. Like, all you have to do is prove your concept, right? So what's your idea, and what is the cheapest way that you can make it a reality, right? So the skateboard was so cheap, I already owned it. That was all I had to do. And so, you prototype in that way. You keep things as cheap as possible. Don't spend money on anything you don't have to. I remember the first couple purchases, I was like, oh my God, am I really about to spend my own hard earned money on this stupid idea? And now I'm like, it's funny. I don't buy anything for myself, my person, Scott. Like, I don't, I mean, you can ask. I have the same pair of jeans. There's a stupid hole in them. They're too skinny on me now. I have 5 polos that I wear through a cycle, Monday to Friday at work. My shoes, God, they could definitely use some updating. Like, I don't spend any money on myself, but I am so willing to throw money at next level. It's stupid. Like, it's almost a bad thing. Like, I was like excited to buy this 3D printer downstairs in my basement that's going right now. Like, you have to be willing to throw some money at the goal, and it's definitely going to feel very weird early on because you've never put money towards something like that before, or at least for me. So I guess I am very willing to withhold money for my person and push money towards the business. So I guess that's an important thing. I'm sure other people can do it in other ways, but that's how I've learned to save money. And you have to abandon the ego. Like, I try to be very open that I live with my parents. This is not a glamorous life, and I'd love to move out at some point, but it's not the right step in the process. I have to get next level up to a point where we just launched yesterday, and so I need to have enough income that I can move out of my parents' house, I can pay for rent, and I can still support the business, right? So that's another thing. You have to let the ego go and do whatever is necessary for the business or for the product or for your podcast or whatever it is. And you just need to let that all the ego stuff. Like, I still, to this day, like, I'm embarrassed a little bit every time I tell a patient of mine that I live with my parents. But you just got to do it, and you remember to yourself why you're doing it, and you just reinforce yourself every step of the way. And a lot of people aren't going to understand what you're doing, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. I feel like a lot of those are just good, solid nuggets of wisdom in becoming an entrepreneur and an inventor in PT. So thank you for that. I just kind of wanted to know, do you have any other future entrepreneurial goals in PT? Are there any other ideas that you have, or are you just kind of right now really focused on the next level device? Like, yeah, what are some of your goals?
Yeah, it's a heck of a question. It's something I ask myself every day. Like I said, I'm an ideas guy. The ideas, there's no problem there. Like, they're always coming in, but it's the execution. So now I'm like, all right, what am I going to focus on? And right now, like you said, it is all next level, baby. That is the only thing in my life. Like, I don't have a girlfriend. I don't even get to hang out with my friends that much anymore. My diet is stupid because I just eat the same thing every day because it's the fastest, right? Like, it, that next level is everything for me right now. So yeah, I have ideas, more things to come for sure. Not comfortable sharing them yet because, like I said, there's all these ideas, and 95% of them are probably stupid. But you just got to find one that works and go with it. And right now, I'm going with my ace, the next level device.
There we go. Yeah, no, I like watching Shark Tank, and that's something that like everyone says like they had so many like ideas, maybe on like the specific thing that they're selling there or like whatever they had, like, but they kept trying, and failure's part of the process, and to understand and be comfortable with it. But then eventually you find one and you run with it, and some of the people obviously are super successful on there. So yeah, I love that a lot. Um, I kind of wanted to know for those that are interested in learning more about Next Level Device, what are some of the resources and things that they can do to be able to learn more if they're interested in finding out what the Next Level Device is all about and how they can get a hold of it?
Yeah, for sure. The most educational platform would be our YouTube channel. And so I've put a lot of effort into putting out online demos where I'll walk a patient through each exercise and talk a PT or a chiropractor through every step of my thought process and each exercise, the things to look for, the common faults, all that stuff. And so those are on the YouTube channel. Those would be called the patient demonstrations. And then I break up each exercise, and those have their own video on YouTube as well. And then also on the YouTube channel, something I'm really proud of is all of our testimonial videos. So in the last 6 months, it's been a great time for me because, like you, I interview people, and I get their thoughts on the next level device, why they thought it was a good product for them. And it's just remarkable having an idea that came out of your head and all of a sudden it's helping people. And, you're saying that this changed my life. It's just like, oh my God, this is so crazy. Like someone pinched me. And so those are all on the YouTube channel, the patient testimonials, and then also PT testimonials. So physical therapists who use it every day in their clinics, they've talked about the device. You can find that on YouTube as well. And then Instagram, we're going to be putting up a lot of content. Like I said, this just launched yesterday. So Instagram's going to have a lot of content on there. I'll be posting educational stuff there from time to time. And nextlevel.com, NECKSLEVEL.com. We have tutorials on there as well as my blog. So I'm going to be posting blogs about, how I came up with the device, more stuff on that. Like I said, I'm going to make a blog post of all the different prototypes and cover your eyes. Those things were ugly. But there's also going to be educational blogs on there. So me talking through how I think about progressing people through the next level device, if they have neck pain, specific injuries, all that stuff can be found on nextlevel.com. And then most importantly, I love to connect with PTs and patients like that. That is such a motivator for me. Like if people reach out to me, it truly makes my day to hear that, this device is having an impact. So please email me, Scott, SCOTT, at nextlevel.com. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Scott. Honestly, that was a super great podcast right there. I love being able to learn all of the different avenues that you explored, the whole process of being able to create something that came just from an idea that you said, and really to where now you're able to bring it to market, help people, and you're seeing that impact that idea has brought to people's lives. That's, I think, what we're all about in PT is impact people's lives to create a better quality of life for them. And so for you to have that idea, and now that it's been paying off in people's lives already, I'm sure such a gratifying and great feeling to have.
100%. Yeah, man. And I commend you for what you're doing. If you guys don't realize what JT is putting himself through, he is the host of a podcast in the middle of graduate school for physical therapy. That is not an easy task. And like I already said, like I failed at that task during PT school. So much props to you for your efforts.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure, and it's a great opportunity to be able to meet people like you and share your story with everybody. I wish you the best of success, and yeah, I'm really excited to see maybe bring you back onto the podcast in the future episode and see how the success and everything that you've been growing and progressing in. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see what happens. Buckle up.
All right, thanks. Have a good one, Scott.